Okay, I'll get started this morning by welcoming everyone. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. Today is our group learning program where I help students to learn the path to enlightenment and training your mind to get to this enlightened mental state that the Buddha taught. We start our class with meditation, and then afterwards we move into a talk that's going to help you to understand the path to enlightenment. And today we're going to be studying chapter 5 of our book. This is the book that we use for this program. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And chapter 5 is the Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha. If you were interested in getting on the path to enlightenment or even remotely understanding what the Buddha taught, it would be this particular teaching that you would need to know. And you would need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, up, down, left, right, in order to be able to make your way to enlightenment. So I'm going to be helping you guys to understand what this is using the original words of the Buddha after our meditation, because we start with meditation first, and then we move into this talk to be able to help you guys to understand. And you guys will be able to ask questions and get help and clarification, and be sure that you're able to really investigate and examine the teachings. But we start with meditation. And meditation is one aspect of your practice, as you're going to see today, that you need to be able to make your way to enlightenment. But you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You need much more than just meditation. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way I start is I start with some chanting that helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. The chants are over there on the table. There's a laminated sheet. You're welcome to help yourself and get one of those chanting sheets. You'll see the language that we're using is the Pali language, and then you'll see English translations to be able to help you to see what we're actually chanting during the time that we're chanting. After the chanting, I'm going to move into providing you some guidance where you'll actually be hearing me guide you during the meditation. And then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anyone joining us online, we can just all be meditating together. You're going to probably hear occasional sounds and things like that, but these are all impermanent. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So when you hear certain sounds like a car going by or a bird chirping or something like this, you can just train your mind to come back to the breath. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. If you see these chants, you're going to see a lot of gratitude and respect and appreciation for the Buddha. And because of that, I think his students probably created these chants either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't go around and teach people to chant things to him out of gratitude and respect. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move from anger and sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, and you're moving to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, it's calm, it's serene and content with joy, and this is a permanent mental state that you're experiencing, and this teacher helped you and they didn't expect anything from you or want anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So the Buddha wouldn't have walked around with arrogance and pride and boastfulness and saying, here, chant these things to me. So I suspect his students probably created these either during his life or after his death. And during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to remember the teachings, because everything that he taught was oral. They didn't write things down until after he died, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world when he was actually teaching. So it was an oral tradition. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally through chanting. So when you're chanting, it's helpful to understand that there isn't any mystical or magical benefits with this. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not a prayer or anything like that. It's just nowadays to help ease the mind in the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, chanting was purely used in order to just to remember the teachings. That's why they recited them. So the understanding the history can help you understand that there isn't anything mystical or magical with these chants. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on that. There's actually 4 different positions to meditate in. They're seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times, and you would need them in your practice because you're not going to be able to be in the same position all the time when you're meditating. So most students are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on this to help you understand it, but understand that there isn't just one way to sit. So the guidance that I'm providing you is just to help you to find what's comfortable for you. You need to find what's comfortable for you. Whether it's something that I'm sharing with you or something you figure out on your own, just find something that's comfortable. But I'll give you a little tips to be able to help you. So if you're sitting on the floor, you might sit with some cushions under your rear. This is going to help to soften your seat a bit. And then you would like to just lightly cross your legs. If they're real tight, it's going to impede circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So this might be an option for you as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if this is helpful for you, you could use it. But remember, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And this goes for anybody who's in a chair, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a sofa or on a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. You would like to find whatever's comfortable for you. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see I'm in a chair with my legs crossed, so there's many different options that you could employ here. And then the same thing with the hands and arms, just put them wherever you're comfortable. You'd like the upper body to be erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it helps to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind, and then you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during your meditation. And by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it helps to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, because it's ensuring that your lungs can expand easily. So having your sternum up and your shoulders back with your upper body erect really helps. Whereas if you were slouched, your mind would be kind of dull or lethargic, and it'd be kind of challenging to breathe. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive and uptight. So that's why you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It keeps the mind attentive and alert and makes it easy for you to breathe. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting. You guys are welcome to join along. And then afterwards, I'll come in with the guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti pisu Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavato body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะกวาโพตังมหากวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหากวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here online. Welcome to everyone welcome everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online. Those of you guys in the hallway, you're welcome to come in if you like. We have plenty of space up here. You guys are welcome to make your way through. Yeah, welcome to our class today. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. Great to do some meditation with you guys. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to share with you guys the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is what you'd like to be able to learn and understand and grow and develop in order to really make your way to enlightenment. So far in this group learning program, I've been teaching it for about 2 months now. I've taught it many, many times. I think this is the 8th or 9th time that I've actually taught it. It's a 7-month program where I'm gradually walking students through all the foundational teachings that'll help you to be able to make your way to enlightenment, improving the condition of your mind and improving the condition of your life. And we use this book for the guide of this program, and you can get this book for free. You can download it from our website if you like. You can take it and go print it yourself. We have printed versions here at the temple that if you just reimburse us for our printing costs, you can get a book, or you can order it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon in your country, because you can gradually walk through this book and really build a practice where you're gradually training your mind to get to the point where you eliminate all your discontent feelings, where you'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. You'll notice that the mind's focused. It has concentration and clarity and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships will really blossom because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile any longer. You're not making unwise decisions in your relationships. So you'll notice that your relationships are completely peaceful and blossom. blossoming and at ease. You'll get to the point where you're not even experiencing a bad mood anymore because the causes and conditions that produce the bad mood have been uprooted and eliminated from the mind. And it's this topic today that I'm going to be talking about that's going to guide you to be able to experience this mental state of enlightenment. It's a permanent mental state that you achieve through training of the mind. The Buddha essentially discovered pollutions that are in the mind. These are referred to as the 10 fetters, and these pollutions need to be uprooted and eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. And as you eliminate them from the mind, you'll see the peace and the joy starting to shine through more and more. So this Eightfold Path is the guide. This is the core central teaching that you would need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the original words of the Buddha to walk you guys through this slowly but surely. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is you don't believe them. There is no belief in the teachings whatsoever. You can't believe your way to enlightenment because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. So you need to be able to learn, examine, and investigate his teachings. You need to be able to then reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false through your own direct experience and what you've been experiencing in life. And then you need to practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to actually practice them. And this is where you see the real results because you start to uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. As we go in our class today, I'm going to be pausing at different times to provide you guys an opportunity to ask questions and get clarification. This is an important part of your learning. And as you guys have questions here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl in front of the camera. You just press the gray button on them and then the lights come on. You hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And for those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple and through the live stream as well. And if you get one of these microphones, you can just keep it with you at your seat because you might have more than one question or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share these microphones throughout the space, and that way everybody can get access to a microphone and ask questions. One of the things that the Buddha teaches you is that when you're learning his teachings, you need to learn with eager ears, meaning you're actively understanding the teachings. You're actively working to understand the teachings. That's what's actually going to result in you being able to cultivate wisdom. That's what's going to lead to your improvement to the condition of the mind. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, we're talking about cultivation of wisdom. And that wisdom is cultivated through first listening with eager ears so that you can then examine and investigate his teachings. You can learn them and then you reflect on them to verify them and then you practice them. And that's how this process works to help you awaken to these natural laws and what the Buddha is teaching you. So I'm going to start out with just a little bit of a understanding of what the overall path is. There's these 8 individual steps: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These are 8 factors that you're dialing into your life closer and closer. One of the ways that you can think about this is that if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 dials to try to get this better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind functions the same way, that there's these 8 factors that if you dial these into your life closer and closer, your mind's going to start performing more optimally, much like a speaker system. So I'm going to walk you through each one of these, pausing at different times, opening up for questions that you guys have. This Eightfold Path is organized into 3 individual sections: the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. And we refer to this as the Eightfold Path. This is the path to enlightenment. These 8 factors that you're dialing in one by one, but you're practicing all of them at the same time. You're not mastering one before you move on to the other. You're learning all of them and you're tweaking all of them. It starts with right view, which is what I actually taught last week. Some of you guys were here last week and you learned that. Others of you guys weren't here, so I'll just give you a brief little overview of this, but you're going to need to really penetrate into right view in order to understand the path to enlightenment, because this is the foundation. That's why it's on the bottom, because it's a foundation that you build everything else on top of. So you can go back back and listen to the recording, because everything that I teach here is recorded. So you could go to our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, or on our podcast. You can access our books and our audiobooks. All this stuff is available at no cost. You can even sit down and talk with me privately, and I'll help you gradually, slowly, but surely learn these teachings. These classes are great, but sometimes you need to really relate it to your specific challenges in life. So that's why I offer personal guidance as well. So I started last week with right view, and now we're going to move into all these others, but just giving you guys a recap of what right view is. Here, these are the words of the Buddha. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So this is from the Eightfold Path. And what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching. He's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is what helps you to establish right view. Underneath of this line here, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. There's more below this, but I put this top section here so that students can build confidence and see that, yes, what the Buddha is talking about in the Eightfold Path, which is this core central teaching to enlightenment, what he's talking about there is the Four Noble Truths. And then what I do is I teach you the Four Noble Truths, and that's what I did last week. So just as a little bit of a recap, what we did is we first talked about the three universal truths. These are like building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Without understanding the three universal truths, you wouldn't be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. And we refer to these as truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to get benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're not believing the teachings. You're cultivating wisdom to be able to learn, reflect, and practice. So I talked about the universal truth of impermanence, where the Buddha is helping you to understand the world around you, that things are constantly changing, and that there's not this permanent fixed state. You can independently verify this through your body. You can see that your body's constantly changing. Your relationships are constantly changing. Your bank account's constantly changing. The weather's constantly changing. You can see that we started out with a certain number of people in class, and now we've got more people in class. This is change, right? There's constant change in your life. So this is a very important building block to understand as you are helping to develop your mind with the wisdom of how the world is. The Buddha didn't describe the way the world should be. They're not rules and commandments that everybody needs to follow. What he's doing is he's explaining to you the way the world is, because the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand the way the world is, and that's why it struggles and it has difficulties like stress and anxiety and sadness and frustration, because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. So one of the things you need as a building block is to understand that everything around you is constantly changing. This is called impermanence, the universal truth of impermanence. Then the universal truth of discontentedness is explaining the condition of the unenlightened mind, that the unenlightened mind experiences conditioned feelings. It experiences pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And you can see this whole list of feelings that I associate with these particular qualities. And this is called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, the mind is going to experience pleasantness, like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. It's going to experience painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others, and neither painful nor pleasant. Like shyness is a good example of this. Some people say boredom and loneliness is quite painful for them, so you could put that in the painful category. But nonetheless, this universal truth is explaining what the unenlightened mind experiences. That if it's sunny outside, for example, you'll get happy based on the condition that it's sunny. But then when it rains, you'll be sad because that's a condition. Those are called conditioned feelings. Or if your bank account is up here, you might get so happy and so excited. But then when it goes down here, you might get sad or frustrated. This is called a conditioned feeling. Or if you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might be so happy. But then when you guys break up, you might be sad or frustrated or lonely or bored or some other discontent feeling. These are called conditioned feelings. This is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. The enlightened mind is beyond all of this. It's been trained to not form its inner feelings based on some condition. That in the unenlightened state, you might wake up and see it's sunny outside and get so happy. And then you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining and you'll be sad and frustrated because you wanted to go outside and play. But an enlightened being, they're already happy before they even woke up. Their mind was already joyful. It was uplifted. It was bright. It was cheerful. And when they see it's sunny outside, it's like, all right, sweet. I'm going to go outside and play today. This will be great. And then you go take a shower and you come out and now it's raining. And it's like, all right, well, it's raining, so I guess I'm going to stay home and read a book, or maybe I'll go to the mall and watch a movie, or maybe I'll invite friends over. Because they didn't form their inner feeling of happiness on the sun, when the sun is no longer there, then they don't get sad. But if you form your happiness, your pleasant feelings based on some condition, that condition is impermanent. So it's going to change. And that means your feeling of happiness is going to be gone. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness yet. Because what the mind is doing is it's forming its inner feelings based on some condition. If it's sunny outside, it's happy. If you got a bank account that's up here, you're happy. If you got a boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe you're happy. If you've got a new job or something like this, maybe you're happy. Or you get that new pair of shoes or new jewelry or something like this, you're happy, right? But then when all that stuff starts to change, your mind ends up experiencing the anger and the sadness and frustration. So you'll see in the Four Noble Truths why this is occurring. And then we talked about the universal truth of non-self. This is where the mind is clinging to the body or the self-image. It's clinging to the self-identity, like I am, some culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, your job or occupation, your nationality. The mind is clinging to this, I am this. So there's a certain self-image and a certain self-identity that the mind will tend to cling to. So if you've ever been embarrassed when you were spilling something on your clothing, for example, in a social situation, this is because your mind is clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And if you're being perceived that way, you feel happy or excited, you feel great. But then when you spill this, chocolate ice cream on your clothing, now you might feel embarrassed because you're not being perceived by others in a certain way. Or you might get a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or gray hair. You might start losing your hair. Things like this. This is the mind holding on to this self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can train your mind to let that go and just make wise decisions to maintain the health of this body without actually wanting or craving to be perceived by others in a certain way. And then there's a certain self-identity that the mind will tend to hold on to. And this is like, I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am a police officer, I am a lawyer, I am this, I am that. If the mind clings to this, then when you have a certain self-identity intact, like maybe you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're talking about the people from where you come from. They say, all Americans are friendly and loving and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, I feel so great because I am American. And then when you are at that same restaurant and 2 tables over, someone's saying something degrading and disparaging about the people from where you come from, if you have that identity in your mind, now you're going to feel frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So there's more depth here that I actually walk students through this, and I showed them how to independently verify all of these universal truths. And that's something that you're going to need to do in order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. So here I just kind of giving you a recap and an overview. And then we talked about this craving, desire, attachment, this longing and this yearning. This is something that the mind does in the unenlightened state, is it pulls in the direction of the objects of its affection. It thinks the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it longs and yearns and it chases after this thing. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets this happiness. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw that brand new pair of shoes and you were like, brand new pair of shoes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I can't wait to get those on my feet. They're going to look so great. Everything's going to be wonderful. Or, new jewelry. That's what I need. New jewelry. Let me chase after that for a while. A new phone, a new computer, new video game, new boyfriend, new girlfriend. Let me chase after that for a while. That's what's going to make everything better in my life. So the mind will chase and chase and chase and chase. More money. That's what I need. More money. Let me chase after that for a while. So this is the longing, yearning, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So this is something that the unenlightened mind does, is it thinks that happiness is going to come from something external. So it chases after it. So you guys can reflect on this and you can see that your mind is actually doing this, where you've been chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. The mind will tend to live on that side of the spectrum, or it'll be all the way over here on the other side where you're dull and lethargic and exhausted and tired because you've been chasing so much that the mind swings all the way over here to the other side. And what the Buddha is doing is he's inviting you to come to the middle way where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And now you can maintain your peacefulness and joy all the time. And that's what the Eightfold Path is doing for you, is helping you understand how to bring your mind to the middle. So once you understand these as building blocks, then you learn the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths explains the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And I walk students through this in a way that they could independently verify it. The first noble truth is explaining the problem, that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings. The mind's happy and excited and elated, but then it's only a matter of time before it's sad and frustrated and irritated and annoyed. And then you experience shyness and displeasure. The mind just kind of goes up and down and up and down. You've got periods of peace here and there, but it's only a matter of time before something happens and your mind experiences this anger and sadness or frustration or some other discontent feeling. So this is the problem that everyone is experiencing, is the discontent feelings, the mind forming its inner feelings on some condition. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you experience happiness or excitement. But if you don't get what you want, you get angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And this is what you can independently verify. You can see in a situation where you've recently been angry or frustrated or irritated that your mind wanted something. And because it didn't get what it wanted, it got angry or sad or frustrated. Whereas if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy or excited. Because what the second noble truth is helping you to see is that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. What the mind does in the unenlightened state with its lack of wisdom is it will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry or sad or frustrated. You might be going around the world blaming other people for the things that you're experiencing. When you don't understand these Four Noble Truths, when you're experiencing anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings, you will associate that with something external. And then what you'll do is you'll try to push this away. You'll try to push the person away, or you'll try to push the situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But you can see that when you've pushed people away out of your life, it didn't solve the problem. You still get angry. You still get frustrated. You still get annoyed. If this person or this situation was the true problem, when you push them out of your life, then you would just be completely peaceful from that point forward. So that's not the true cause of the problem. Or the other thing you'll do with your lack of wisdom is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people with your intentions, your speech, and your actions, because you're experiencing those painful feelings. And you think the way to solve this is to try to convince this person to do things your way. So you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards them and trying to convince them and kind of fearing them into doing things your way. It's kind of like an animal growling and roaring at another animal and trying to convince this person to do things your way. Or the third thing you'll do when you have a lack of wisdom of these Four Noble Truths is you will put your expectations on people and you'll try to control them and kind of force them to do things your way. And none of this works, that you're never going to get to peacefulness by pushing people away, by being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and by putting your expectations on people. So when you understand what the real cause of the problem is within your own mind, the craving, desire, attachment, and you can independently verify it and see the truth for yourself, then you realize that there is an escape for this, that there's actually a solution. Because if your mind is what's causing these feelings, that means you can solve it. You can fix it. Whereas if it's everybody else that's causing these feelings in your mind, then you can't fix it because it's everyone else who's causing it, and you can't fix other people. But if you can come to terms with understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you'll be able to see that you can actually fix it. What the mind's doing is it's craving permanence. It's wanting and longing, yearning things to be a certain way. So, for example, when we were little kids and we were like, Mommy, Daddy, can you get me chocolate and ice cream? Can you get me chocolate and ice cream? They were like, sure, here you go, have chocolate and ice cream. And we were like, you're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. Oh, wow, this is great. But then at some point we were like, Mommy, Daddy, can you get me chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream today. We were angry, we were upset because we were craving that chocolate and ice cream. We wanted it to be permanent. We thought it was permanent, where sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. That's impermanence. We live in an impermanent world, but we were craving that permanence. Or if you think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you were with, you were so happy, you were so excited when you got with them, you got this craving fulfilled. You got a new partner, someone showing you affection in your life. Then when you guys broke up, you might have been angry or sad or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored or missing this person. The reason why is the mind's holding on. It's craving permanence. It's wanting this person to be permanent in your life when in reality, everything around you is impermanent, right? So the second noble truth is explaining to you the cause of these conditioned feelings, which is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. The third noble truth is explaining that, hey, there's a solution here. You can eliminate your discontentedness by eliminating the cause. If you can eliminate the cause, then you can eliminate the discontentedness. By eliminating craving, desire, attachment, you will eliminate your discontentedness. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the way to eliminate this is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to help you to eliminate all your cravings, desires, attachments, where you can still pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest, and you do that through wise decision making. But you're not chasing after these things, and you're not forming your inner feelings based on this thing, right? So sometimes when people hear about eliminating your craving, desire, attachment, it's like, well, what do I do? Just sit around and do nothing? No, you're still going to be active in the world. You're still going to be doing things. It's just that you're not going to be forming your inner feelings on that thing, where when your mind is attached or you're craving things to be a certain way, you can only be happy when you get things your way. So you might have this long list of things. If my mom does this, if my dad does this, if my boss does this, if my life partner does this, if my children do this, if my bank account is this, and the weather is this, and I get to go on vacation to Thailand, then I'll be happy. Right? So you have this long list of expectations and things that you want. That means your happiness becomes less and less and less, because all those conditions can't be true all the time. But when you wipe that away and you don't have this expectation, this longing and yearning, if it's sunny outside, you can be happy. And if it's raining outside, you can still be happy, because you're not forming your inner feelings based on these things. But there's a whole path of training that's going to help you to be able to do that. And that's the Eightfold Path. Okay, so it's the Eightfold Path, starting with right view, that lays the foundation to help you understand how to actually progress forward and be able to train your mind to get to this peace and this joy. So what right view is understanding the Four Noble Truths, that it's craving, desire, attachment that is causing these feelings, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. What wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, this is wrong view, and you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. You're not going to be able to eliminate these discontent feelings if you kept blaming other people for what you're experiencing. You need to be able to accept responsibility and see the truth that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Now, that doesn't mean people around us are doing things that are wise. People could surely be doing things that are unwise, but the feelings that you're experiencing are being caused by your own mind. So you need to be able to see that very clearly so that you can establish right view and be able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because now the rest of the path is going to teach you the training that you need in order to actually change your mind, get rid of these cravings, desires, attachments, and actually get to the point where the mind is experiencing peace and joy. So now we move on to right intention. Right intention, here's the words of the Buddha. And what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So some people translate this as right thinking or right thought. What this is where your mind has the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is the willingness to let go and give up on your false beliefs, your opinions and your views. Because if you hold on to those things very tightly, you'll never get to enlightenment. One of the first false beliefs that you need to get rid of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry. If you hold on to that belief, there's no way that you're going to be able to get to enlightenment. But the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is you're not getting rid of your beliefs and bringing in new beliefs. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to bring in wisdom so that you can see the truth. And where that wisdom conflicts with your beliefs, you know that you've been believing something that's unwise, and you can let go of that belief, and now you've got wisdom. You know the truth of true reality. So if you're believing that your mind, that other people are causing you to be angry, you need to be able to see the truth and the wisdom that it's your own mind that's causing this. There's other things that you're holding on to, perhaps. There's certain opinions and views and certain unwholesomeness, certain unwholesome things that you might be doing in the world that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. If you didn't practice the intention or the thinking or the thought of letting go of these things, you'll continue to hold on to them, and they're not serving you very well, and they're causing difficulties and challenges in your life. You need to be willing to let them go. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. You need to have this intention of non-ill will. What non-ill will is saying good will. That's a double negative. So in English, when you have a double negative, it's a positive. So non-ill will is the same thing as goodwill. So you need the intention or the thinking of the thought of goodwill towards all beings. This is also referred to as loving kindness, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That's what you would like to cultivate. And then you would like to cultivate in the mind this intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. Because as long as you're causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. And you can see that in your own life, that anytime you've made harmful decisions where you've harmed other people, this harm is just going to come back to you. So starting off with the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path, the Buddha is teaching you to have this intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. You're having this right view where you're understanding the Four Noble Truths and accepting responsibility for your feelings and emotions and the things that are going on within your own mind. You're accepting responsibility and accountability for your feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Not blaming other people for the decisions that you're making and what you're experiencing in your own mind. That's very important to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And then this intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. This makes up the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. And I went over this in a little bit of an introductory way just to kind of move us along, because it usually takes me quite a while to teach the entire Eightfold Path. But what I'd like to do is just pause and see if you guys have any questions here. Is there anybody here at the temple or anybody online that has any questions about anything I just shared? Let me check online and see if we have anything here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so now we're going to move into the moral conduct section. This is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Whenever you see moral conduct from the Buddha, it's important that you understand that he's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's not telling you how the world should be. He's not trying to impose anything on you. What he's doing instead is he's teaching you this natural law of karma. Some people refer to this as karma. This is cause and effect, or action and result. The word karma comes from the Pali language. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will usually refer to it as karma. But you might be more familiar with the Sanskrit version, which is karma. What this is referring to is a natural law. And if this translated to just one English word, I would just use that word because it's easier for everyone to use it and understand it. But it doesn't translate to just one English word. What it's describing is this natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. That when you make certain decisions, it's going to lead to gamma, or it's going to lead to certain results. And when you make decisions wisely, it's going to lead to wholesome results or wholesome gamma. And when you make decisions unwisely, it's going to lead to unwholesome gamma or unwholesome results. So it's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. The natural law of gamma isn't anything mystical or magical. There's no being who's overseeing this. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's literally like a sequence of events showing you that when you make decisions either wisely or unwisely, it's going to lead to wholesome results or unwholesome results. And now what the Buddha does in the Eightfold Path under right speech, right action, and right livelihood is he shows you the certain moral conduct that you can practice that's going to lead to wholesome results. Because if you haven't studied the natural law of gamma and you haven't studied the Eightfold Path, you're out there in the world making decisions about your moral conduct without this wisdom. And this is why you're having certain struggles and challenges in your day-to-day relationships. So if you're out there practicing wrong speech, wrong action, and wrong livelihood, you're going to experience unwholesome results coming back to you, and you won't even understand why. So what you're awakening to is this wisdom of the natural laws. And one of the natural laws is the natural law of gamma. So we're going to start with right speech so you can see what the Buddha is teaching you here. And you would like to learn this in a way that you can learn, reflect, and practice, because that's where you're going to see the real results. So you can learn it and examine it today. You can start reflecting on it today. And then you can go out into the world and start practicing it gradually, slowly but surely. You're not going to be able to snap your fingers and instantly implement any of the things that I'm teaching you, but gradually you dial it in like those 8 dials of the speaker system. You tweak this and get better and better at improving your moral conduct. So here the Buddha is describing the Eightfold Path with right speech. He says, "And what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech." So what he's doing is he's teaching you how to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments related to speech, and speaking in a way that's wholesome and that's wise. When we've lied in the past, there was something you wanted. There was something you were craving for. And if you would have told the truth, you wouldn't have got what you wanted. But because you had this craving in your mind for things to happen a certain way, you chose to lie. And now your mind was wanting that particular thing. But now when you lied, someone figured out your lie. Somebody understood that you were lying, and now they might see you as undependable and untrustworthy, unreliable, and this is going to hinder you. So when we lie and we don't have the wisdom to make wise decisions about our choices of speech, then we put out this lie, it causes harm, and now this harm comes back to us because people don't trust us and they don't see you as reliable and dependable. So the Buddha is teaching you to not lie, that you'd always tell the truth. And now people will see you as dependable and reliable and trustworthy, and you'll have great relationships as part of that. And then you'll need to learn to not slander or gossip. This is like degrading somebody's reputation, where you might feel like if you go into a room and you see people have a candle, you might think if you put out someone else's candle, your candle's going to shine brighter. There's usually like a craving there. The mind wants to look good in front of other people. And now the mind might think, if I degrade other people, if I gossip and slander them, this is going to make me look good. There's a craving there. There's a longing, a yearning there. But this is actually just causing you harm, because at the height of this, if you go out into the world and slander and gossip people, you might actually get murdered. There's been people who have been killed over this kind of stuff. You can see investigative reporters who might be exposing something on the news, and they did it in such a way that people knew who they were, and then they might have gotten killed, right? Remember, the Buddha's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And then you can understand this, right? At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering, then when you have your back turned and those people that you were gossiping and slandering to, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. And you can look at this and you can see the truth. If you've ever done this kind of thing where you've been gossiping and slandering people, when you turn away, those people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you, right? So the Buddha is teaching you that it would be unwise to do that. Then there's harsh speech. What harsh speech is it's your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. When you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people, there's a certain craving there. You want something. And now you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And this is just damaging your relationships. So the Buddha is teaching you that it's wise to speak gently, that you need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Whatever language you speak, you're going to need to look at those kinds of things and decide how to speak in a way that's gentle so you can eliminate your harsh speech. Then there's frivolous speech. What this is like idle chatter. This is like unbeneficial, unpurposeful speech. If you've ever done this, or you know somebody else that's done it, it's kind of like yada 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 yada. It's like it's not really a conversation. It's like broadcasting, right? And you're just like, oh my goodness, when is this person going to stop talking? Oh my goodness, right? This is what you might be thinking. And in this situation, you're going to find it challenging to have relationships with others because people aren't going to be interested in listening and understanding what it is you have to say. So this is the top level from the Eightfold Path of right speech. And if you're currently doing any of these things, you would like to focus on that and improve it, right? It's not about whether you should feel guilty or shameful. It's just what the unenlightened mind does. It lacks wisdom of this, so it tends to do these things. So you would like to improve this in your practice, gradually and slowly but surely improve this. Then you would like to get deeper into your speech. The Buddha teaches the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, that you speak at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And here he's giving you these natural laws to help you understand how to have a successful and harmonious conversation. Speaking at the proper time is making sure that you're not interrupting somebody, and also that your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry or frustrated, that's not the proper time to talk, because that's all that's going to come out is your anger and your frustration and your agitation is going to damage your relationships. And then the third aspect of speaking the proper time is making sure the other person, it's the proper time for them. Maybe your mind's calm, but their mind's not. And it would be unwise for you to speak during that time frame. Instead, it's better to step away from the relationship. This helps you to have better and more harmonious relationships, where if you guys are yelling and hollering and argumentative with each other, you might feel like we got to get to the end of this. It's like fighting to death. But instead, a more loving and kind way to approach this is to step away. Let your minds calm down. Protect your contentedness. Value the relationship more than getting to the end of this argument and showing who's right and who's wrong. Because if you guys are arguing, you're both not winning. You're both losing. You're both in the wrong because you're arguing and fighting and bitter and harsh and hostile. So step away from the conversation. Let the mind cool down and calm down, because otherwise you're going to say something you regret later. And now when your mind's calm, then you can come back together and you can talk and have a good conversation. What the Buddha is saying here in the next part is he's saying, speak what is true. That's also what he's saying up in the right speech. He's also talking about speaking gently. That's what he's talking about with right speech as well. Pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Then he's talking about speaking beneficially or purposefully. He's also talking about that in right speech, right, with frivolous speech. Then he says, speak with a mind of loving kindness. This is that genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. If you're speaking with inner hate towards the people around you, that's all just going to come back to you. So you would like to improve that. So if you can build up your practice to the point where you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you can establish something that we refer to in the Thai language as barami. The word barami means the one who people listen to. In Thai villages, there's typically some elders that are really well known in the community for having a very successful life. And there's people who might go to those villagers in order to get help and advice. And when I say they're successful in life, I don't necessarily mean financially successful. What I mean is they're successful in their relationships. And the villagers know these people have barami, meaning the one who people listen to. They're wise, they're intelligent. So people go to them and ask questions and ask for help. Well, if you would like to establish barami in your family, in your professional life, and things like this, you're going to need to learn how to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. As long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, people aren't going to be interested in talking with you. People aren't going to be influenced by what you have to say. So you're going to need to speak in wise ways so you can establish barami, the one who people listen to. This is what you would like to establish. And that's not going to happen in 1 week or 1 month, right? It's going to take many months and years of you practicing this, where more and more of the people around you, they realize that you don't cause harm through your speech, that you speak in very wise ways. And now more and more people will be interested in spending time around you and being around you. In the book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, there's a lot of details around speech, because there's a lot of harm that can be happening through your speech. You can cause a lot of harm through your speech. And here I just have a little bit of the details, but if you go into the book, which again is available at no cost, you can see all the details where I describe it very clearly. And while during the lifetime of the Buddha, they refer to it as speech, that's because that's all that was going on during that time. We might think of this as right communication. We would like not only our speech to be practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, but our text messages, our emails, our social media posts, all of these things, the ways that we communicate with people. Because if you're angry and hostile and bitter and you walk over to your keyboard and you're banging on your keyboard to send out an email, that's not the proper time to be communicating. Hit save, come back to it later, and look at it and see if you still would like to send that email, right? Or say you went to a job interview and you knocked it out of the park and you spoke really well, and these people are really interested in hiring you. The dream job that you would always like to get. But now they look at your social media and they see that you're bitter and harsh and hostile in your social media, you're probably not going to get the job. So you would like all your communication, whether it's text messages, voice messages, emails, social media posts, all this, to be following the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Now, the Buddha is telling you and sharing with you exactly what you need in order to be able to develop your communication to be wise and wholesome. And this is where you can independently verify these things, right? Because you can look at conversations that didn't go well in your life. You can look at these 5 factors. Now look at that situation. Were you speaking at the proper time? Were you talking the truth? Were you speaking gently, beneficial, or with a mind of loving kindness? You can see in the conversations that didn't go well, you missed at least one of these. If you even missed one of these, your conversation has the potential to not go well. And if you miss more than one of these, oh, wow, you're really going to have challenges and struggles. And you can see that in your life because you've been in those kinds of conversations where it hasn't gone well. And you can see that you missed one of these, or maybe more than one. But then you can look at the other side of this, because you have conversations that actually go well. And you can see you and maybe the other person, we're actually practicing these, because these are the natural laws. Again, the Buddha's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's showing you the natural laws. So you can independently verify that when you practice these, it goes well for you. You have great conversations, right? So in the past, you might have been practicing these without even realizing that you were practicing them, and your conversations went well. But now what you would like to do is start consciously practicing these in all your relationships. And it's going to take you time, because in situations and relationships where you have attachment, where you have craving, like a life partner, like children, like your parents and siblings, you're going to find it challenging to speak gentle, right? Because you want this person to be a certain way. You want them to do a certain thing. And you're finding it challenging to speak gentle in all these situations. So as you get rid of your cravings, desires, attachments through the entire Eightfold Path that I'm going to teach you, you'll find it easier to speak in gentle ways. So just understand that you're not going to be able to walk out of here and practice all of these perfectly. That's not the way this works. You're going to need gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And gradually, slowly but surely, you'll be able to improve and get your communication to the point where you're always speaking in this way with everybody around you. And this is where your relationships are really improving. Okay? Then there's right action. Right action is how you cause harm or not through your bodily actions. Here, the Buddha is giving you three impactful things. He says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So he's giving you three impactful things that if you kill, if you're stealing, or if you have sexual misconduct, then this is going to cause harm in your life because you're causing harm to others. So harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha goes into a lot of detail on these in the 5 precepts. And we're going to be studying those in 2 weeks. It's part of chapter 7. Okay. So if you're killing, this is going to cause harm to another being, and this harm is going to come back to you. If you're stealing, if you're taking things from people, there's a certain craving there. You have a craving, you want this thing, and now it's causing harm to this individual, and this harm is going to come back to you. And the sexual misconduct that the Buddha teaches, it's based on the 5 precepts. And in the 5 precepts, he goes into detail explaining sexual misconduct. And I would like to give you guys a heads up that this doesn't include same-gender relationships. If you're in a same-gender relationship, you'll see that the Buddha doesn't describe that as being harmful because it's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults that are choosing to have sex. And there's no harm there, right? Nowadays, not as many people understand that. More and more people are starting to understand that. But this is how wise the Buddha actually was. 2,500 years ago, he understood that same-gender relationships doesn't cause harm because it's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have a sexual relationship. There's things in there with sexual misconduct like going outside of your existing relationship. If you do that, that's going to cause harm, and this is why the harm comes back to you. If you have sex with minors, for example, he talks about that. He talks about having sex like against somebody's will, like without their consent. He talks about these kinds of things. So we're going to explore this in more detail in 2 weeks, but I like to give people a heads up that this doesn't include same-gender relationships. So the Buddha's not giving you an exhaustive list here of all the things that you could do that cause harm with your bodily actions. That would be impossible for him to do, right? So we can learn and we can apply this to all parts of our life. Like the Buddha wouldn't have said, it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees, right? Because the planes didn't even exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. But if you understand what he's teaching you here, you know that it's very unwise to do that because these people are going to get bitter and harsh and hostile with you, and you're going to have a problem on the airplane. So he's not telling you, like, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? He's not telling you that. But you can understand it. You can apply this in those situations, that anytime you're using your body to harm other beings through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. So he's giving you 3 impactful ones, and then you're going to need to apply this in all parts of your life. Okay, so he talks about things in other parts of his teachings like taking substances that cause heedlessness. This is a bodily action that causes harm to this being who you are. He talks about gambling because there's a craving there for the mind, longing and yearning. So he teaches you this as well. So he's not giving you a full exhaustive list. He's just helping you to understand that it would be unwise to cause harm through your bodily actions. Then he goes into livelihood. This is how you choose to sustain your life in the world, how you choose to make an income, how you contribute to the world in order to be able to sustain your life. And he teaches you not to cause harm to other beings through your livelihood. This first part of the Eightfold Path, he's talking about just something general. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Just something very general, very broad. But then when you go into his other teachings, he explains what right livelihood is. And he gives you these 5 livelihoods where he says this would be harmful. That if you sustained your life with business and weapons, business in living beings, business in meats, business in substances that cause heedlessness, or businesses in poisons, you're causing harm to others. And this harm is going to come back to you. And again, you can independently verify these things, right? Just take one like substances that cause heedlessness. If I stood on the street corner and I sold crystal methamphetamine or heroin into the community, I'm causing harm. And now harm's going to come to me because these people are getting addicted to the substance. They're going out and robbing and stealing to be able to bring me money. And now, standing on that street corner, I'm very likely to get beat up. I'm very likely to get robbed. I could get murdered, I could get arrested, I can get addicted to this substance. These are all harms that are coming to me as a result of causing harm to others. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. It's not just based on the human laws. So in most places, it's illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine and heroin into the community. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you understand that this is a much higher law, functioning way higher than any human laws. The human laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. But this natural law is functioning perfectly at all times. If you understand this aspect of the Eightfold Path, you might decide that it's unwise to work in that liquor store and sell alcohol, because by you serving alcohol, maybe at a bar, at a liquor store, something like this, it's very likely that you're going to experience harm. This is why oftentimes people working at a liquor store, there's someone who comes in to rob the store, and now they get beat up, they get murdered, they get all kinds of problems. At the very least, you're dealing with clientele that are sometimes intoxicated. And how could you get to this peaceful and joyful mind and this peaceful and joyful life if you're constantly dealing with people who are intoxicated, right? This isn't a fun thing to do, right? So if you understand the natural law of karma, you understand that it's functioning at a much higher level than the human laws, because your government could say, yeah, go work in that liquor store, no problem, go work at that bar, you can serve alcohol, we're not going to arrest you for that. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you might be like, whoa, I'm not interested in that, because I could get beat up, I could get murdered, I'm going to have to deal with these intoxicated people. I'm not interested in that. Right? You're interested in creating this peaceful and joyful life for yourself. So the Buddha is giving you these, and you can independently verify each one of these by walking through this. There's been people recently that have been dealing with weapons that have been murdered. You can see it in the news, right? Right now, there's the wars that are going on, and there's people who are creating weapons, and you can see that they're getting assassinated, right? Because of that work that they're doing. So you can independently verify each one of these. Then the Buddha explains to you how to conduct your livelihood and what you do in your livelihood, not just the type of livelihood that would be wise or unwise, but how you actually perform your livelihood. He talks about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. Here, he's helping you to have guidance to understand how to perform your livelihood. So, for example, if I was a politician and I got elected to office, and maybe over the last 10 or 15 years, I keep getting reelected, but I've been scheming and I've been corrupt, and I've been doing things backhanded. And now, 10 or 15 years into my career, people find out. And now I'm potentially not going to get reelected. And now my career is a waste, right? So this is what the Buddha is teaching you, is make sure you're not scheming. Maybe I'm a police officer and I'm scheming and have corruption. And now that gets found out and I get fired, and now I can't get a job anymore. I have to go do something else. I have to reskill. I have to get new skills and new abilities. I have to find new contacts, and I have to rebuild my life from the very beginning because I was scheming and being corrupt. What flattery is this is where like you're having insincere comments just to try to get people to buy things from you. If you've ever been in a store and as soon as you walked in, they were like, oh, that shirt is so beautiful. It brings out the colors of your eyes. I've got these perfect earrings that'll just go wonderful with that shirt. Would you like to see them? Right? This is like flattering someone, just giving like insincere comments to try to sell something. And the Buddha teaches that it's unwise to do this because people are going to see through that. If you've ever been in that kind of store, you were probably like, I don't really even want to look around. You just kind of like want to leave right away. It kind of feels icky when you're in that kind of environment. So that's why the Buddha is teaching you that. What hinting is this is where you're not clear and concise and precise about your work that you're doing. Let's just say all of us are on a project team and we're now doing some kind of work, and we need to go in and we need to brief the boss about what it is that we've been doing. Well, when we walk into that meeting, we'd like to be clear and concise. We'd like to be purposeful and help the boss understand what it is that we've been working on. Whereas if we're kind of meandering around and we're kind of like not very clear, not very concise, we're not going to have as much success in our career. So the Buddha is teaching you how to be successful in your career. Belittling is like degrading and disparaging people. either your coworkers, your business partners, your competition, people like this is not going to go well for you in work. Sometimes you think that if you have a competitor in your business, that you can degrade them and disparage them to your customers, and that's going to make them come and do business with you. But it's actually just the opposite. You're not interested in degrading and disparaging your competition. You would like to be polite and respectful. If you don't have something nice to say, just don't say anything at all, right? Just if your clients are asking you about things that you do and what other people do, just tell them about what you do. I'm not quite sure what they do over there, but what I can do for you is this right here. This is how I can help you, right? But belittling and degrading people, it's not going to go well for you in your profession. What pursuing gain with gain is this is like just doing something for money, and that's all you care about, right? It's not about investing. If you need to invest in order to make more and more wealth, and that's what you choose to do. What pursuing gain with gain is like, say you take a job and you really don't care about the product or service that you're providing, and all you're doing is just doing it for money, and that's all you care about. Well, you'll be happy at first because you're getting all this money, but eventually that's going to wear off and you're going to feel disgruntled. You're going to feel dull. You're going to feel like this is a dead-end job. And you would like to get to the point where you're thoroughly enjoying the work that you're doing, that you have enthusiasm, you have motivation, you have ambition, right? Because if you have to drag yourself to work every day, how could you ever get to a peaceful and joyful life? You would like to enjoy the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis so that 8 hours or 10 hours or however long you're at work, you thoroughly enjoy what you're doing. And if you're just doing it for the money and that's it, that's going to wear away over time. And you're not going to be able to thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. So the Buddha here is guiding you to be able to purify your livelihood so that you have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation in your work. There's another level of purification that the Buddha talks about in terms of your livelihood. So if you're in between jobs, or if you're in a job that you would like to move past, you might decide to look at volume 12, chapter 14. This is in our book series here that you can look at it and you can learn the full exhaustive teachings of the Buddha on your right livelihood. This is volume 12, chapter 14. And this is going to help you to move to a better livelihood, and you can see what you need to practice in order to get to that point. Okay, so let me know what questions you guys have after I give you this summary here on the moral conduct. What right speech is not causing harm through your verbal conduct, but all your communication, whether it's verbal, text, chat, post, email, all of this should be harmless. Using that top level where you're choosing not to lie, slander, have harsh speech and frivolous speech, but then also that you're speaking at the proper time. What you say is true, it's gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Then you would like to develop your actions so that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions, and you're not choosing to do that, and instead you're practicing harmlessness through your bodily actions. And then you would like to practice a livelihood where you're sustaining your life off of not causing harm to others, that you enjoy your livelihood, that you have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Remember, for those of you guys online, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or here you guys can use the microphones. So I think, Rachel, you had a question?
Yes, I do. This is about right action. It's actually a dilemma a very close friend of mine has here. She's married to a Buddhist. They're practicing Buddhists. They have a wooden house that's been infected by termites. And her husband is very distressed about this because he believes in right action and doesn't want to kill the termites, but it's literally causing great damage to their house. They've spent days investigating ways they could somehow fix the problem without harm. And his language when he talks about it is of slaughter, like it is distressing him to think about poisoning the termites. So they have finally decided, with great sadness, to poison the termites. The other dilemma was there are termite mounds around. Their neighbours are Karen. They live in a Karen village, and termite mounds are sacred as well. So there's other problems, but they've decided to poison it. So, but with great sadness. Do they just have to accept their karma? I'm just interested in your response around the teachings for this dilemma.
Sure. So since they're experiencing sadness, you can see that the mind's not in the middle. Because if they were in the middle, they would have the wisdom and they wouldn't have that sadness. Because we had the same thing. We had termites at our home as well. So what the Buddha teaches you is to live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. And in order to live compassionately, meaning concern for the misfortune of others, you need to have compassion for this being who you are. So to just sit there in the house and let the termites eat this house, it wouldn't be living compassionately for this living being and the living beings that are in that home. So you need to be able to start with that. And living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings doesn't say that you preserve all life at all cost. That's not what he's teaching, but that's the way people think. But you need to be able to see his original words where he says, live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. And of course, you're going to try to not kill. But in some situations, you're going to need to potentially kill. What your friends have done is they've lived compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. They went out and they researched, they looked to see, is there a way for me to eradicate these termites without actually killing them? And that's living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. And then what you come to realize is that there isn't a way, that you need to be able to put some things around for them to eat and take back to the nest. And what's happening there is that those beings, those insects, because they don't have the consciousness as a human being, they're eating this wood and they're causing harm to other beings. And now this harm is coming to them. As a human being, our consciousness is developed enough that we know that we can go eat in the forest. If we ate wood, we would just go to the forest because we know we're not harming anybody by eating the wood in the forest. But the insects don't understand that. And that's one of the challenges of being in the animal world, is that your consciousness isn't developed enough to make those type of intelligent decisions. So now, because these beings are causing harm, harm is coming to them. It's the same thing like if you were sitting in your house at 3 a.m. in the morning sleeping and someone broke into your house. They're not bringing you chocolate and flowers for sure, right? And you're not going to just sit there and let them stab you with a knife and beat you up. No, you're going to now do what you need to do in order to protect this being. Just sitting there letting them beat you up isn't living compassionately for all living beings, which is this being. But because this human being chose to come and cause harm, harm is now coming to them. And it's the same thing with an insect as well. So an individual can choose to do these kinds of things and they can be at peace because they realize they're making a wise decision here. But they are living compassionately. They just need to let go of the craving of preserving all life at all cost. That's what they need to get rid of and come to the middle. I saw some other mics. Yeah. The batteries. Okay, we'll go to someone else. Does someone else have a live mic? Galit?
Yeah. I'm not saying it's my beliefs, so I'm just asking the question. Some people believe that due to the natural law of karma, or certain practices in life, illnesses happen to certain people. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. There are some illnesses that are coming from certain things, right? Everything we experience is a result, of our decisions. But no matter how enlightened you are, you'll always experience sickness. Even an enlightened being experiences sickness, and they're making all wise decisions. This is just the nature of existing in the world, and that this body is impermanent and it can't be permanently healthy. So even though you're enlightened, you're not like circumventing the natural laws and somehow the body is going to be permanently healthy. There's 5 things that the Buddha says are unobtainable. That is permanent health, permanent youthfulness, permanent life, permanent, holding on to things. So the way he describes it is the unattainable. He says that you will experience sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. These are the 5 things that you can't avoid because of impermanence. But what you can avoid is you can avoid the anguish, the mental anguish as a result of these things. So in the unenlightened state, when there's craving, when the body's sick, you'll be maybe frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But if you're enlightened and you get sick, you won't experience that mental anguish, that discontentedness, but you're still going to experience the sickness. So there are some sicknesses that are being experienced based on things like, let's just say somebody was sexually promiscuous and they were having sex with lots of people. And this leads to HIV or AIDS, right? That is a choice that they've made, and that illness came to them as a result of that. Or say somebody was making the choice to eat lots of bad food, and now they maybe get pancreatic cancer or something like this. This is from the decisions that they're making. So that's why the Buddha teaches you wise decision making. So you drastically cut down the ability for this body to experience any particular illness, but you're still going to experience some degree of illness even if you're enlightened. That should help you to understand that aspect of it, but it's not 100% from just the decisions that you're making, but just choosing to exist in the world. Because the individual hasn't got to enlightenment, they're going to experience sickness, aging, and death. You can't avoid that in this life, but you can get to the point where you're not experiencing the mental anguish as part of that.
Thank you.
Have some other questions?
Oh, it's working. So there was a mention of people who are dealing with meat. Does this mean that path to enlightenment is associated with being vegan, vegetarian, or like, because there, in livelihoods there was like people who are dealing with meat shouldn't deal with meat, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, if everybody practiced the teachings of the Buddha, there wouldn't be any meat to eat because nobody would be selling it. This is one of the big misunderstandings they have in Thailand about the path to enlightenment, is people think that it's based on who actually kills. The person who kills is experiencing the harm. This isn't actually true, that even when you eat meat, you're experiencing more sickness and more disease in the body as a result of that. So where we are today in life is we have been eating meat for many, many generations, and many people's bodies are being sustained off of meat. And now we have a large percentage of our population that is starting to move to a plant-based food supply. And slowly but surely, people are choosing to do that. When or if somebody chooses to do that is always their choice. You'll notice more improvement to the health of the body and the health of the mind if you choose to move to a plant-based food supply. But when or if somebody chooses to do that is their choice. And you'll see that there's this improvement. But as we're like the first generation to really be switching over back to plant-based food supply, there's going to be some people who just are incapable of doing that. Not because of their mind and an interest, like it's not because of central desire and they're holding on to this, but maybe their body can't be sustained off of just plants alone. There's generational people who, like, there's students who study with me that are in their 50s and their mother was vegan when they were in the womb, and they never have had a piece of meat in their entire life. This person can completely sustain themselves on plant-based food. They don't even have to take supplements. They don't even take vitamins or anything like that. Their body is fully adapted to plant-based food supply. But then there's other people that have been eating meat for a particular period of time, and even as they start cutting that out, they become unhealthy. And in order to live compassionately for this living being, they're going to maybe need to eat 5% or 10% of meat in order to be able to sustain the life for themselves. But they're not doing this based on central desire and holding on to the meat. They're purely doing it because they've tried to go vegan. They maybe even did that for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They got into a very unhealthy condition. They started taking supplements and working with doctors and nutritionists and things like this, and their body just won't do it. Because at one time, human beings were plant-based eaters. When we first started, we were all plant-based eaters. We only moved to meat out of necessity. And you can see this through our teeth, that our teeth mimic the teeth of like a cow or a horse, where like an animal that eats meat, their teeth are very sharp because they have to rip and tear. And the scientists tell us that human beings ate plants when we first started out. And we can see that for our own independent verification through the teeth. So now people are starting to realize that having eaten meat and going as far as we have with manufactured farming and things like this, that is causing grave problems in the world. And people are starting to move to a plant-based food supply. And we'll tend to do that. More and more people will probably do that, but it's going to take multiple generations before everybody can get over to that. So to answer your question, yes, if somebody was practicing these teachings closely, they would potentially be vegan. But in the next few generations, as people's bodies are starting to adjust, we're going to notice that some people just can't do it, even with all the best intentions and moving in that direction, that their body is just dependent on this. And they're still living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings because they're living compassionately for this being. So you need to be able to factor those kinds of things in.
Cool, clear.
Yep. Other questions? Yep.
I have a question related to our job. I feel sometimes self-contradictory in our job because I want to give two examples. The first example is talking about the right speech. If I because in the job you are very goal oriented and you have to meet the satisfaction of your boss, and so sometimes if you have to fire someone, you cannot you know that this is harmful to them, and maybe you cannot choose a proper time to talk to them. And the second example is when some people do sales or marketing, and I think most of the time they have to do flattery.
So this is what you might be doing now or other people might be doing, but that's not how you have to live. You don't need to live that way. I was in business before and I was practicing these teachings and I had to fire people in some situations, and you just have a calm and polite conversation with them, and you sit them down and you talk to them and you thank them for their service. You thank them for what they've done for you as a employee, and you let them know for, however you would like to, that you need to let them go. And it doesn't have to be bitter and harsh and hostile when you're choosing to do that. You can do that at a proper time when it's the proper time. So this is why companies will sometimes have severance packages to kind of help them ease back into the job market. This is why some people tend to do these kinds of things on like a Monday or a Friday. Different people have different philosophies on this. Some people like to do it on Fridays because then it gives them the weekend to kind of let things go. Some people like to do it on Mondays because it gives them the week to kind of start preparing their job applications and things like this. So you can practice these teachings in all the situations that you explained and many more. You don't need to flatter people in order to sell people. You can just tell them like, hey, this is what I offer. Here's the benefits of it. And if they would like to purchase it, great. But it's when you have a craving and you want to make a lot of money that you might feel like you have to flatter these people in order to convince them to buy things from you. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is how to get rid of your craving, desire, attachment, because it's not the money that's going to lead to your happiness. So flattering people is ultimately going to make it so that you have less customers, because more and more people can see that you're just being insincere and that you don't actually have true intentions to provide a good quality service or product. And now you're going to actually get less money because you're actually choosing to flatter people. Whereas if you're just honest and trustworthy and you just share what it is that you have to offer, then you can actually do a really good job at selling whatever it is that you're selling. So while you might think that way now, there's this better way of life that you can learn and grow and develop and practice and experience improved results.
May I ask another question?
Sure. Let me just ask, for those of you guys that aren't speaking on your mics, if you guys could turn them off, because we're getting just a little bit of feedback with the mics. Just check in with your mic. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I think this question may be similar to the first one. I think when someone in your life do some harmful things to you, and I think you told us that it's not good to feel like angry or sad, and it's useless to push them away or blame them. But what if I have enough wisdom? What is the real thought in my mind?
I'm sorry. Can you say that last piece?
If I have enough wisdom, what is the real thought in my mind when someone do harmful things to me?
Sure. So what you're saying is that if you're wise and maybe even enlightened and somebody's being bitter and harsh and hostile, what are you thinking at that point in time? Okay. So a person who understands these natural laws, if someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile to you, you know that you're not the cause of that. You're not causing that person to speak bitter and harsh and hostile. It's their craving, desire, attachment that's choosing to do that. So when they're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, you don't get upset. You don't get frustrated because you know that you're not the one who caused this. And you're also yourself not craving for this person to be a certain way. Whereas if you have a longing, a yearning for everyone to be polite and kind to you, when someone's polite and kind to you, you'll be happy. And then when someone's unkind, disrespectful, you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated. But when you understand impermanence and you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you'll know that some people are going to be polite and kind and friendly and respectful and other people aren't. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that in 99.9% of the situations, people are friendly and polite and kind to you. But there's going to be very rare situations where people aren't going to be that way. But even an enlightened being is experiencing that, but their mind is in discontent in that situation. They're completely at ease because they understand that this person being bitter, harsh, and hostile, they're causing it themselves, and there's nothing you can do to fix that person, and you don't have a craving for them to be a certain way. And you just understand this is impermanence. It's just a sound. You don't see it as agreeable or disagreeable. It's just a sound that they're making, and it's them that's causing that, not you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, yes, sir.
Question. This question came up to me after your yesterday talk about the judgment, about the stillness, and the situations when we have like that someone is harsh to us or behave in a certain way that this triggers some kind of emotions in us. And how would you refer to the people who, let's say, when you have a guy to annoys everybody? How would you refer, for example, to like serial killers or people who made their way to the way of life to that they in general are harmful to other people, to animals?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that person who you're saying annoys everyone, they're not actually annoying everyone. Everyone's being annoyed by their own craving, desire, attachment. They're expecting this person to be a certain way. They're wanting this person to be a certain way. They're craving permanence, and they want everybody to be a certain way. And when people are that way, they're happy. But when someone's not that way, they feel annoyed, right? So in this situation, it's not that person who's annoying someone. So an enlightened being isn't going to be annoyed. If that person is the one who's causing the annoyment, you would never be able to get to enlightenment, because that person would just do something and now everybody's annoyed. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't expect this person to be a certain way, and you can just reside peaceful and joyful no matter what they're doing. So no matter what that person's doing, you can maintain your calmness and composure and your contentedness in that situation. So it's important to understand the Four Noble Truths, which I taught last week in more detail, where you understand that it's your own cravings that's causing this. It could be that that person's doing something unwise, but they're not causing your discontentedness. So say, for example, let's take those well-spoken speech, or the right speech, the lying, the slander, the harsh speech, and the frivolous speech. Let's just say you're in a relationship and this person's lying. They're doing something that's unwise. But if you become angry because they're lying, this is your own mind having craving. You're longing, yearning, and wanting this person to tell the truth, where instead you need to be able to understand impermanence. Some people are going to lie, and some people are going to tell the truth. Of course, you would like to be in relationships where people are telling the truth. That's wise. But you're going to be in situations occasionally where people do lie to you. More and more, as you cultivate healthier relationships, people will be trustworthy and honest with you in all situations, but you're still going to experience someone being untruthful or maybe even slandering you. Even the Buddha, people slandered the Buddha. People still slander the Buddha. Harshness, people are going to speak harsh to you. So if every time somebody does something that you disagree with, if you choose to get discontent, if you choose to get annoyed, you'll never get to enlightenment, because it's just a matter of somebody doing something that you disagree with, and now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So when you get liberated to enlightenment, what that means is you're free. You're no longer forming your inner feelings based on this thing. So this person lies. Okay, you see their lie. That's unfortunate that they lied, but you don't get discontent because of it. You don't get annoyed or frustrated. You just understand that, hey, that lie is hurting them, but you're not going to form feelings based on it. Or if somebody's bitter and harsh and hostile, you just see, okay, they're bitter, harsh, and hostile, but I don't need to form any kind of feelings based on them. That's your mind is attached. Your mind is craving for them to be a certain way. And you can let go of that and understand that everybody's going to be doing things in a different way, and you can maintain your contentedness no matter what people are choosing to do. And this is where the training comes in. This is where your mind is not able to do that right now. Whereas if someone lies to you, maybe you get really frustrated, you get really agitated. But this is your own frustration, your own agitation. So the person who's lying, it would be wise for them to improve that. And then the person who's getting angry and frustrated, it'd be important for them to improve that too. We need to accept responsibility for what's going on within our own life and making our own wise decisions. So it's important to understand that other people aren't annoying. It's your own mind that's doing that. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards other people. You can just love everybody, having a genuine interest in seeing everyone be well. But when you have expectations, when you have cravings of other people, you can't do that because you want them to be a certain way. And that's the craving for permanence that the unenlightened mind has. Okay, any other questions on the moral conduct? Yes, ma'am.
I have one more question. And you just talk about the lie. So if someone treats you in a bad way, such as they lie to you, and if you just forgive them for lying to you, and I want to know if is this like just you allow them to lie to you, you allow them to treat you badly?
You're not allowing anything because it's not your choice that they lied, right? So like my son, he's 12 years old. Him and I have talked about lying many times. And if you have kids, you'll know this, that you need to talk to your kids many times about lying, right? Because they lack wisdom. They don't understand. They have so much craving, right? They're going to lie to you about things in order to get what they want. I'm not allowing him to lie to me because I'm not the one involved in that decision. He's the one who's deciding to lie to me. And now when he lies to me as his father, I'm teaching him that this is unwise, but I don't do it angrily. I'm not angry when he lies to me. It's kind of like, you lied again? Do you realize how harmful this is for your life? Like, let's sit down and talk about this. Let's discuss it and help you understand why it's so unwise to lie. But I haven't allowed it to happen. He hasn't treated me poorly. He's choosing to do something that's really unwise for his life, for what he's experiencing. So now, as his father, I need to teach him this. But let's just say it's a coworker or something like this. Still, they're choosing to lie. They're not. It's not a reflection of me that they're choosing to lie. It's an unwise choice that they're making. And now, if we're going to continue to work together, I might need to have a conversation with this person and help them understand how what they're doing is unwise and it's impacting our ability to work well together. But you wouldn't be interested in doing that angrily, because now it's just going to damage your relationship.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you guys have lots of questions, and there's actually more online. Yeah, you can have questions too. Let me answer these online. We have Mark on Zoom. Hi, David and everyone. In terms of Gamma, if someone is born with a disability and they are unable or very unlikely to be able to follow the teachings of the Buddha. Is this because of their past life karma? The answer is yes. He has a second question. Would Jesus be an example of an enlightened being? Jesus actually wasn't enlightened. We can see through the Bible that Jesus got angry when he was in the temple and he kicked people out. He turned over their tables. And he also said at the end of his life, he said, I will come again. This is rebirth, right? That I will come again means that I am not enlightened. I need to be reborn in order to come back into the world, learn more wisdom, and actually get to enlightenment. So Jesus, while he had some degree of awakening because he taught a lot of the same natural laws that the Buddha taught, he just taught them in a different way. He had some degree of awakening. He wasn't actually enlightened yet. This is why he still got angry. This is why he said, I will come again. Also, when he was dying on the cross and he called out to God and he said, why have you forsaken me? This was a lack of wisdom, that it wasn't God that chose for him to die on the cross. It was his own decisions that led to that. And Jesus taught that. He said, you reap what you sow, right? This is the natural law of karma. So if you go around your community and you start tossing people out of temples and you start flipping over tables, see what happens to you, right? Because this is what happened during the lifetime of Jesus. He went around, flipping over tables, kicking people out of the temples. And then when he was in jail, they said to the people, hey, who do you want me to release? This murderer or Jesus? Who would you like me to release? Who would you like me to crucify? They were like, crucify Jesus, because he had impacted a lot more people. This murderer maybe killed one person, and maybe that family was interested in seeing that person get crucified. But because of Jesus's actions during his lifetime, he impacted a lot of people in a positive way, yes, but he also impacted people in a negative way based on his unwise decisions. And this is what ultimately led to his crucifixion. So an enlightened being wouldn't have died calling out and thinking that it's God that caused this to him, but instead it was his own decisions that led to that. And that's what he taught during his life, but he had that lack of wisdom at the time of death. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a quick question. I wondered if you have any advice for people who live with ADHD, who find it hard to focus in general and then have loads of thoughts flying around in their mind all the time. And sometimes they might turn to spirituality or or maybe Buddha's teaching to find peace, but ultimately it's likely that they don't make real progress in their life, in their reality. I wondered if you have any advice on that.
Yeah, the advice that I would share with someone who's been told that they have ADHD is to learn and practice the Eightfold Path, because in reality, there isn't anything biologically wrong with this person. It's just that their mind hasn't been trained. They actually don't have ADHD, so to speak, even though this is what they're being labeled with, and they might have adopted that label as part of their identity. All that's being described there is that they have a collection of symptoms, and these symptoms are predominantly that their mind lacks concentration, that it lacks focus. And that's just because the mind hasn't been trained to have that focus. Turning to medication isn't actually going to solve this problem, because the problem isn't in the brain. The medication is affecting the brain. What we're talking about is training the mind. The brain is the physical organ. The mind is the non-physical, intangible aspect. And these two things are connected, but they're two separate things. So if you go in there and you tweak brain chemistry, while you'll affect the mind, you won't actually heal the mind. You won't actually fix it. If you're looking to fix the mind, you can actually fix it through training of the mind. And you can get to a point where those symptoms that are being described as ADHD can be completely eliminated from the mind. Whether it's ADHD, ADD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, bulimia, anorexia, panic disorders, any of these kinds of things, you can actually eliminate them through training of the mind. And this is one of the big misunderstandings in the world, is people think that they're biologically sick or their brain is somehow defective, but in reality it's just a lack of training of the mind. And having trained the mind, they'll be able to gradually make incremental improvement to the point where they're not experiencing that lack of focus and concentration anymore. So they're going to need to just be patient and learn and practice this Eightfold Path slowly but surely, and then they're going to see that they're going to be able to eliminate those symptoms that they're now thinking is ADHD. So while the symptoms and the anguish and the struggles that people experience is completely real, the cause of it in the mental health field is actually not real. The brain chemistry is not what's causing the lack of concentration. It's the untrained mind that's causing that. So when you get to the real cause and you actually apply tools and techniques to fix it, you can get rid of all these symptoms and get to a life where your mind is functioning very normally.
Can I actually ask a follow-up question? Do you mind explaining a little bit more how the mind and the brain work together?
Sure. So the brain is the physical organ that is with the physical body. The mind is non-physical. It's intangible. It doesn't exist in any one particular place. Sometimes in the West, we point here when we talk about the mind. Here in Thailand, they tend to touch the heart. When they talk about the mind, they think the mind is inside the heart, which is a really nice thing to think about. In other cultures, they think about the mind as being outside the body. In reality, it's not really physical. It's not really tangible, so you can't really point to it. And it's impure in the unenlightened state. When we're born into the world, it has all these impurities. And the mind affects the brain, that the brain chemistry can be off because of the problems that are occurring in the mind. And this is why scientists, with all their technology, thinks that, oh, we should just tweak this brain chemistry and that'll fix everything. But it never does. It doesn't completely give a full solution. So no matter how much you're tweaking brain chemistry, you're not going to be able to clean up the pollutions of the mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions. And when you eliminate and eradicate these 10 pollutions, you'll see that the mind will perform optimally. And now the physical structures of the brain actually change. The brain will actually perform more optimally because you've trained the mind. They can see this. There's some scientists that are looking at the mental health side of it with brain chemistry and all of that, but there's other scientists and other doctors that are looking at, hey, when we train the mind, there's these changes to the physical structures of the brain, and this is a very positive thing that is occurring. So the more somebody trains their mind, they're going to see this improvement to how their brain is functioning. Whereas if you haven't done any training of your mind, you might be cleaning this body, but if you're not cleaning the mind, then you're not addressing the full being. And this is why people experience things that are referred to as ADHD or bipolar or schizophrenia. These are just a collection of symptoms that are being described as a mental disorder, but in reality, it's all coming from an untrained mind. That's what is the real source of the problem.
Can I have one more?
Yeah.
I was bound for many years with the classical medicine, but after some time, I realized that for many patients, I cannot help. And that time, the energy medicine came to me. Now I work for 7 years with the aura, with the chakras, but this is mainly spiritual medicine, energy medicine. And did Buddha, did this Buddhist wisdom say something about this kind of medicine, this kind of approach to the human?
Yeah, the Buddha didn't teach any of that stuff because everything's training the mind. Because everything you experience in the world is coming through your mind. So if you have a polluted mind, the world will seem very miserable. It'll feel very hard to live in this world. But when you purify your mind and you train your mind, because you're experiencing everything through the mind, your life can be very peaceful and very joyful. So doing these kinds of things while people find a certain amount of benefit in it, you'll never actually get to enlightenment that way because the mind is still polluted. You got to address the mind. Okay, yes, some more questions.
I want to ask a follow-up question. Let's say that you have a friend, he always lies to you, and maybe you can avoid, you can go away, and you can just stop this relationship with him. But if you are in a marriage and if your partner lies a lot to you, you can talk to him. You can tell him this is harmful to you. And what if he knows that, but he chooses not to change? He still lies a lot to you. What should you do?
So there's no relationship that you can't end. The only reason why somebody might think that they can't end a relationship is because they're holding on to the person in the relationship. You can end any relationship you'd like to end. You can just move on and choose not to associate with that person. So if there's somebody that's doing something that's so unwise and they're not choosing to change, then you might choose to move away from that relationship. But you need to be sure you're looking at things properly, because you might just be having cravings, desires, attachments, wanting this person to be a certain way. And now because of that, they're not doing things the way you want. And now you get angry and sad and frustrated, right? So by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have expectations of wanting people to be a certain way, and you can live with anybody harmoniously. But there are certain unwise decisions that somebody could be making that you choose to move away from this relationship. Like say you're being physically abused, or you're being sexually abused, or say you have a partner that's regularly going outside and having sex with other people, and you've talked about this, you've discussed it, they're still not changing their conduct and things like this. You might decide that, hey, I can't be in a relationship like this where there's physical abuse or sexual abuse, or they're going outside the relationship, and I'm just going to move on. But that's not going to solve your painful feelings. If you're having painful feelings as a result of what's going on in this relationship, you're not going to solve that by leaving the relationship. You've got to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments that are leading to those painful feelings. So it's important to make sure that if like you want your partner to take out the trash every Monday and they don't take it out every Monday and you're like, oh, they won't do it, I got to leave this relationship. No, that's just your craving, desire, attachment. If they take it out on Sunday or they take it out on Tuesday, that's their choice. But if you have an expectation and a craving for them to do it a certain way, then yeah, you'll be frustrated when they're not doing it that way. So you need to be able to look at the real decisions that they're making and making sure that your decisions of why you might choose to leave out of this relationship isn't based in your own cravings and your own lack of wisdom, because you can really damage your relationships and end up, making some unwise decisions that end a relationship that would be otherwise very wonderful, but your mind is just functioning through these cravings and expectations. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next part. I didn't realize you guys were going to talk so much about moral conduct. So that's not usually what people like to talk about the most. So it's really nice that you guys had questions about that, right? So I'm going to move into this next part, the mental discipline section, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Again, using the words of the Buddha and helping you guys to understand this. So here's right effort. This is what the Buddha says about right effort. He says, in what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. So there's 4 things that the Buddha is talking about here. And what I've done is I've summarized them over here, and I've given examples to be able to help you understand this. What he's talking about in the first one is he's saying prevent unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. What this is there's certain things that are unwholesome that are not in your mind right now. It's the farthest thing from your mind. And what he's saying is prevent that from coming into your mind. So like you probably aren't thinking about killing another human being right now. That's the farthest thing from your mind. And the Buddha is saying prevent that from ever coming into your mind. Apply the effort to ensure that that doesn't come into your mind. And there's other things too that are not currently in your mind. This is just kind of some examples. Then number 2, abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. This is any unwholesome qualities that are in your mind. He's saying apply the effort to abandon those and eliminate those out of your mind. And I've got some examples here. Say that you're in an existing relationship and you have a craving to go outside your relationship and have sex with somebody else. Well, you know that's going to cause harm in that situation. So if you have that unwholesome quality arise in your mind, the Buddha is saying apply effort to cut that off and eliminate it and get it out of your mind, because you know it's going to cause harm. And then if you have anger or frustration or irritation that's arising in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. You're not going to be able to do this without any kind of effort involved. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate this. That's why you're training your mind in meditation, as you're going to see now, is to give you the ability to let go of these things. Then number 3 is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome qualities that you're going to see as part of this path to enlightenment that are maybe not yet in your mind right now. They are outside of your mind, and you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those in. So for example, generosity. You're going to see that the Buddha teaches you to give and share without any expectation of anything in return. And if you notice that you're kind of hard to share, maybe you're kind of a little bit selfish and you tend to not share with other people, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality into your mind. And that's going to help you in your journey to getting to enlightenment, because it's going to train your mind to let go and not have things be that you're holding on to. Because an enlightened being isn't selfish. They don't hold on to things and are selfish with the things that they have. Or maybe compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. If you notice that you're indifferent and you could care less when other people are experiencing unfortunate situations, you don't have compassion in your mind. So you're going to need to arise this compassion in your mind where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And this is a mental state. This isn't necessarily talking about action. Whether you choose to take action for that person who's experiencing misfortune, that would be your generosity that does that. But the compassion is just having the concern for the misfortune of this being. It's a mental state that you're going to need to arise in your mind. Then there's the 4th one. Maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. What this is that there are certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, and you're going to need to support those, encourage them, not allow them to fade, bring them to full growth and full perfection. An example might be loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You probably have this in your mind to a certain degree, but it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection. Because in some cases, you're loving and kind to people, but in other situations, you're angry and you're bitter and you're harsh and hostile because you haven't brought it to full growth and full perfection. So you're going to need to apply the effort to arise this loving kindness in your mind more fully, so that now you can practice being loving and kind with everybody in your life. Or sympathetic joy. What this is this is the opposite of jealousy or envy. Sympathetic joy is where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So you might have sympathetic joy. Someone might say, hey, I'm taking this holiday to Thailand. And you're like, oh, that's really great. You're going to have a good time in Thailand. I live there, or I've been there. It's going to be really great for you. Have a good time, right? But then maybe you're at work and you're applying for a promotion, and maybe your coworkers are applying for a promotion and they get the job and you don't. And now they walk by your desk and you're like, hey, I got that new job. And now you're jealous, you're envy, right? Having envy, because your mind hasn't brought this sympathetic joy to full growth and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that, right? So that's what this right effort is that you apply the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. Any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you apply the effort to eliminate those. Any wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, you bring those into your mind. And any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you support them, encourage them, bring them to full growth and full perfection. So the way that I teach my young son this is I say, kick out the unwholesome stuff and bring in the wholesome stuff. That's essentially what the Buddha is teaching you. Apply effort to do that. Then there's right mindfulness. Here, the Buddha is teaching you right mindfulness. Again, I'll read it and then help you understand it. He says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about 4 different things here. They're referred to as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But first, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. What the Buddha is talking about is cultivating awareness of your mind, where you're aware of what's going on in your mind. You may or may not have that right now. I know when I first came to the path to enlightenment, I didn't have that. It was kind of like walking through the forest, knocking down the trees, burning up the forest. I was just going through life, not really paying attention to what was going on in my mind, what I was doing in the world. Just kind of like knocking down the forest, right? And I kind of smelt the fire and I was like, who lit the fire? And I looked behind me, I saw all these trees and knocked down and the fire's burning. And I was like, whoa, I'm the one who did all of that, right? So you need to practice mindfulness. You need to have this awareness of mind. Now, this word mindfulness has made its way into modern language, and people are not always using it in the same way that the Buddha used it. You might hear people say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table, right? That's not what the Buddha is talking about. He's talking about this awareness of mind. So you might just hang out with this and develop your awareness of mind for a period of time. You're going to need that. But ultimately, you're going to need to develop what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What this is this is helping you understand the life cycle that discontentedness takes when you're experiencing the triggering of one of your cravings. If you have a craving, desire, attachment, and you want things to be a certain way, when you experience contact through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your body, or the mind itself, you're going to have that craving get triggered, and you're either going to get conditioned pleasant feelings or you're going to get painful feelings. And now when that's occurring, prior to the feelings, there's something called bodily sensations. If you maybe can think back to a time when you've been angry, prior to your mind getting angry, there was bodily sensations. There was like tingling in the body. There was tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face. There was pressure in the skull. And then after that, boom, your mind got angry. You got the feeling, right? So what the Buddha teaches you is that you need to be aware of those bodily sensations, that when those bodily sensations are occurring, it's an early warning system alerting you that, hey, you're about to get angry. Hey, you're about to get frustrated. You're about to get annoyed. You're about to get guilty or shameful. You're about to experience this feeling. So if you can be aware of those bodily sensations, you can cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. You're not suppressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off before it becomes a feeling. So essentially what these bodily sensations are like is it's like the mind saying, hey, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. And you apply right effort and you say, nope, not going to let you do that. This is how you transform your mind. You train it to no longer form its inner feelings based on some condition. And now as you do that over time, your mind won't do that anymore because you've trained it. It's kind of like if you were out in the boat and you were taking a boat from like Australia to Indonesia, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you have a real problem to deal with. So once the anger comes into the mind as a feeling, you've got a real problem to deal with now. You've got to deal with this anger. Whereas if you can prevent it from coming into your mind, you've just saved your mind. You've just protected your mind. So you'd like to cut it off as a bodily sensation. This takes time for you to develop the awareness of those bodily sensations. You may or may not be aware of them right now. Your mind might be going from 0 to angry and enraged at the blink of an eye, and you're not even noticing the bodily sensations. But more and more, you can develop that ability. And the next step that I'm going to show you is going to teach you how to develop that. Then there's the feelings. That's where the mind's actually angry. And if you are experiencing that, you would like to cut that off and let it go. Because if you don't, it's then going to affect the condition of your mind. Do you remember being angry or frustrated for like a few hours or a few days or maybe a week or two where you're generally frustrated and agitated and grumpy, this is because you didn't understand this. You didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. You didn't cut it off as a feeling. So now it affected the condition of your mind. For a few days or a few weeks, you were generally agitated or frustrated. And then it formed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container that's deeply rooted inside the mind. And in this case, it's ill will. Like right now, you're not angry, you're not frustrated, but there's this deeply rooted container of ill will in your mind that if somebody does something that you disagree with, that ill will is going to arise. And now you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards other people. So the Buddha is teaching you to essentially put this blockade at the bodily sensations and cut off and let go of any arising discontentedness. And then meanwhile, you're purifying the mind of these mental objects so that you can get them out of the mind. All those 10 fetters are mental objects. So the way that this might look in day-to-day life is, say you're sitting on the sofa at home and you're watching the news and you're seeing something and you're hearing something that you disagree with, and now you're noticing the bodily sensations of frustration and irritation starting to arise. Well, instead of just sitting there and letting your mind dwell in that, inform the conditioned feeling, you need to redirect your mind. You need to apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. So turn off the TV, get up and go for a walk, go for a bike ride. No need to just sit there and dwell in that and allow the mind to form that conditioned feeling. And if you do this enough where you're cutting off and cutting off and cutting off, your mind won't form these conditioned feelings anymore. It's just going to take time for you to develop these 4 foundations and then get really good at cutting off and letting go every time that this is occurring. This is why if you and your spouse are arguing and fighting, you're not paying attention to your mind. But if you guys come together, something happens and you're feeling the bodily sensations and you're like, oh, not the right time to have this conversation. I'm going to step away. And now you go away, train your mind to let this go. And now you can talk later, a few hours later, a few days later. And now you can preserve the relationship and you guys aren't being bitter and harsh and hostile to each other any longer, right? So it's right mindfulness that is going to allow you to practice right effort. Without right effort or without right mindfulness, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort. You need to be aware of what's going on in the mind in order to apply the effort to eliminate it or cultivate the wholesome quality. And then what's helping you to cultivate the right mindfulness is the right concentration. I'm not going to read this from the Buddha. In other programs and other classes I do, but what he's describing here is he's actually describing the results of putting together the Eightfold Path. He's describing what's called the jhanas. These are preliminary phases that the mind experiences as heightened qualities and enhanced qualities of mind. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to practice right concentration, because the Buddha teaches that too in other parts of his teachings. But in the Eightfold Path, he chose to put the results of having practiced the entire Eightfold Path, he chose to put that into right concentration. But in other parts of his teachings, he explains how to practice right concentration. Well, right concentration is developing a daily meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind in day-to-day life. This is how you practice right concentration, because you're looking to develop the focus and the concentration. So the meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, doing this daily, gradually building up to a practice of 2 to 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. And this can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this level of frequency, because there's probably certain things in your life that are maybe unbeneficial. And if you start peeling those things away out of your life, you'll have more time to do things like this, like train your mind that's going to be beneficial. So you're going to need to develop your breathing mindfulness meditation practice first. Usually people build that up for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, even 8 weeks. Then you bring in your loving kindness meditation. That's what's going to help you eliminate your anger and your hatred and your ill will. Where the breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to develop mindfulness, that awareness of mind. And it's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. So the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. When you're focused on the breath and your mind moves off the breath, you're training your mind to let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you'll hold on to things very tightly and you'll want things to be a certain way. And when you get what you want, you get happy. And when you don't get what you want, you feel sad or angry or frustrated. So the breathing mindfulness meditation is like taking your mind to the gym and exercising your mind so that you're building these qualities of mindfulness and concentration and the ability to let go, let go, let go. And that's why you're consistently doing that over the course of your days and your weeks and your months. And then you'll accumulate more and more benefits of being able to let go so that you're not pursuing your cravings and you're not chasing after that particular thing that you're chasing after. You can let it go and you can be like, hey, I don't need that, right? And you can train your mind to let go. But if you're not exercising your mind in meditation, you wouldn't be able to do that. Then you've got this singleness of mind. What this is you're doing one thing at a time, right? If you've been taught multitasking, your mind actually can't multitask. Your mind can only do one thing at a time. What you're doing is you're doing one thing for 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to the next thing for 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to the next thing. And if you're doing this all day long at work, for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, it's kind of like a racehorse running around the track. And when they go to the barn, they can't calm down. You might get to the end of your workday and you find it really hard to eliminate any kind of stress or anxiety. You're kind of like hyped up, right? Well, if you just do one thing at a time, you can be focused and concentrated. So if you're washing dishes and you notice that your mind is wandering, you cut that off. You apply right effort, right? So if you're doing the meditation, you'll be able to practice singleness of mind because you have mindfulness, you have awareness that your mind moved off the dishes. And now when it moves off the dishes, you apply right effort to cut that off and let it go, right? Or say you're in a business meeting and you're thinking about your trip to Thailand and you just can't wait to get to Thailand. And you're just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so fun. This is going to be so exciting. I don't even care about this business meeting, right? But now you're not able to perform at work, right? And you're not able to really do a good job. So you'd like to cut that off and let it go and come back to the present moment. So you'd like to only ever be doing one thing at a time. And wherever you see your mind trying to do something else, you train it. You mentally discipline it. No, get over here. You need to focus on this. So it's kind of like if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding this steel rod back and forth. When you first do that, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. So your mind might be bouncing around a lot right now. But if you do this through meditation and through your day-to-day life, you're practicing singleness of mind, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove here. And when it pops out, you're going to know it and you're going to be able to bring it right back. But eventually, you're going to get such a deep groove here that your mind just doesn't pop out. It's just always concentrated. It's just always focused. And that's where your mind's getting really, really trained. So you would like to use the meditation and practicing singleness of mind in the day-to-day life to cultivate this concentration. And now this concentration and this mindfulness and this right effort is going to be able to help you to be able to practice this mental discipline. Because how could you ever practice gentle speech if you didn't have control over your mind, right? So all of these individual factors and all these sections are actually working together. You're not mastering one before you do the other one. You're actually using all of these. So your mental discipline is what's helping you to practice moral conduct. Where you see your mind is longing, yearning, and wanting to chase after that thing, you apply right effort and cut it off and bring it back, right? You see your mind longing, yearning for something, chasing after something, you can cut it off and let it go. Where you see your mind is being harsh or bitter or hostile, you can use your mental discipline to cut that off and let it go so that you're no longer speaking in ways that is harmful. So all of these are actually working together in order to help guide your mind to enlightenment. And it's a daily, consistent, ongoing training. So just to kind of summarize the mental discipline section is there's right effort, where you're taking initiative to eliminate certain unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Then right mindfulness is where you're developing awareness of mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness: awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind in the mental objects. And then there's practicing right concentration through your meditation and practicing singleness of mind until you experience what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are enhanced qualities of mind that you start experiencing as a result of putting together the Eightfold Path. And I have other courses and programs where we talk about these and help you to understand them in more detail. As you guys can see, this Eightfold Path is very detailed and is very specific, and you can't learn it in just one sitting. You're going to need to revisit this more than one time. So don't feel like you're going to walk out of here and just instantly start doing all these things. It's wonderful to learn this wisdom and start being exposed to it, but understand it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. There's some people who are learning with me right now that have probably heard this 5, 6, 8, 10 times. I know who they are. I see them online and I see them here as well. They've learned this many times with me, and you need to revisit it that many times to really soak it in. But this is where you would like to start. You would like to start with the Eightfold Path and really learn it well. You would like to learn it inside and out, backwards and forwards, to the point where you can memorize what's going on here, like right intention. If someone's like, hey, what is right intention? I know you study those teachings of the Buddha. What is that? You'd be able to say, oh, that's the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. And they're like, well, what about that right speech thing? What's that all about? Oh, that's refraining from lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. Right? You can just know it cold. What are those 5 factors of well-spoken speech? Oh, that's speaking at the proper time. What you say is true. It's gentle. It's beneficial. And it's with a mind of loving kindness. And you understand the pieces behind that as well. And you could go through each one of these. You're not going to be able to do that in one sitting. So you're going to need to revisit this through books and classes and courses and videos and podcasts that I teach. You'll be able to see this. And you have the words of the Buddha to be able to help you with that so that you can see exactly what he taught. And then as you learn it and examine it and investigate it, you reflect on it to independently verify it and you practice it, you'll be able to see that it actually works, that your condition of your mind in your life is gradually improving. So do you guys have any questions on the mental discipline section? Yes, ma'am.
David, I think this is my ego speaking, but I don't want to focus on washing the dishes when I'm washing the dishes. I like to listen to podcasts, so I'm maximizing my time because my time is, I don't have a lot of time. And focusing on washing the dishes as an example, the menial tasks in life, just can you convince me the benefits of that? Because I just can't stand the thought of it.
Yeah, so that's your craving. That's your longing yearning. I got this whole list of things and I got to get them all done. And I don't feel accomplished unless I get all these things done. So getting to enlightenment is to slow down. Oftentimes we think that you're more productive when you're doing things quickly, or you're doing a lot of things. But in reality, you're actually making it more difficult for you. Because if I'm sitting there washing dishes and I'm thinking about something else, I'm very easy to get cut. My hand can get cut, right? And because I'm not paying attention to the knives and the things that I'm doing here. And now maybe I've made some unwise decisions that I think I'm saving time by washing dishes and listening to the podcast. But actually now I got to go to the hospital. I got to pay this bill. I got to put a dressing on my hand. I can't even do the things that I normally do because I've got this problem on my hand now. So we might be on the phone, watching TV, eating a sandwich, thinking that we're accomplishing more things. But in reality, this conversation that could have been just 15 minutes, it ends up being 30 minutes or an hour because you're not really focused on the conversation. And maybe you said things and you did things that were unwise, and now you got to go clean it up later. This is the delusion that the mind has. It thinks that it's accomplishing more by doing multiple things at one time, but you don't see those unwholesome results that you're experiencing, that now you have to go back and clean that up. Like now maybe you dropped a glass on the floor. Now you got to clean that up. Or maybe now because you've damaged so many glasses, you got to go buy some more. You got to go to the store and buy some more. And you're actually making more work for yourself. Whereas if you just do one thing at a time and you do it really well, you can do it well, make wise decisions, done, and move on. Whereas if you're making unwise decisions in the process, you're going to have to go back and clean that up. And this particular thing is actually lasting a lot longer. So if I have a sink full of dishes, I can actually clean those probably 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes even, just really quick. And if Bo's coming over, then I'll just let her do it, right? Your cleaner later who comes to see me once a week, right? So you just kind of handle it and you get used to being peaceful and joyful. So an enlightened being, this is one of the things that we say, is we say before enlightenment, you carry water and chop wood. And then after enlightenment, you still carry water and chop wood, but now you're doing it joyfully. Where in the moment where you're sitting there washing dishes, unenlightened, having cravings, you're like, this is so boring. This is such a menial task. Where what you would like to be able to get to is do that one thing and train the mind to be peaceful and cheerful and joyful. So you'll still wash dishes when you're enlightened, but you're doing it joyfully and cheerfully. So you won't be able to get to that if your mind is holding on to this podcast and you're not comfortable doing dishes. The mind thinks it's solving its problem. I'm bored doing dishes, and the way to solve that is to listen to a podcast. But that's just allowing the craving to exist. This is where people sit in a restaurant and they watch YouTube. They're not actually solving their boredom because that YouTube's not going to be there all the time. They got to get rid of the craving where you can just enjoy sitting there and eating, and you don't need this other stimulation. Other questions?
So could one conclusion of the Eightfold Path that you showed us be that through concentration in the meditation, you will be able to achieve most these things?
Is your question is in meditation, can you attain all of these things? So you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to practicing the Eightfold Path. That's where the big misunderstanding is. People think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. If you went off to a cave and you sat in a cave for 10 years meditating and you felt pretty peaceful, and then you come outside and you face the world, you'll see that you're not enlightened, right? Because you need to learn right speech. So you could be, even though you can't physically do this, let's just say you could meditate for 23 hours a day. But if you went out for an hour a day and you were bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your speech, you're not enlightened. You're not anywhere close to it, right? So meditation is important. You need meditation to get to enlightenment, and it's part of the path to enlightenment. But you need other things besides meditation. Even though here, when we talk about right concentration, we talk about meditation and focusing on the breath, and that is going to help you to develop more concentration. Where the concentration is actually coming from is that you're eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments. You're training the mind to be peaceful and joyful, just focused on the breath. And your mind's not pulling, because when you have cravings, desires, attachments in your mind's pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. I'm not content just in the present moment. The mind wants this, and it wants this, and it wants this, and it wants this. And it'll create what's called a muddled mind. This is what the Buddha calls it, where you're lacking concentration. So the way that you actually get to concentration is you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. That's how you get to concentration. And meditation is the tool or technique that's training your mind to let go, so you can get to the elimination of craving, desire, attachments. And generosity is doing that too. That's why you need generosity. But meditation itself isn't actually producing the concentration. It's that meditation is helping you eliminate your cravings. And through eliminating your cravings, that's what's producing the concentration.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just see if we have anything here. I don't see anything online. So what I'll do then is just thank all of you guys. Wow, it's 11:42. No wonder why people cleared out, right? This path, I actually went through it in kind of like a little bit more swiftly than I would normally go through it. I normally take a good 2.5 hours to walk through this, and we've been talking for almost that amount of time now. So, I try to do it in a shorter time frame, but it's just impossible because it's so detailed and it's so thorough. And that's what you really need to be able to make your way to enlightenment. So you're going to need to revisit this, but I'd just like to thank all of you guys for being here. Thank you for being interested to learn and grow and develop. If you would like more help, there's more help for you here. It takes time. Sometimes when you're standing at the bottom of the mountain and you look at the top, it looks like it's so tall. And it's like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get to the point where I talk to my kids in a nice, kind, and polite and gentle way? How am I ever going to do that? How am I ever going to talk to my partner that way? It looks like the mountain's so tall. But what you do is you focus on one step at a time, right? And next thing you know, you're halfway up the mountain, right? So just focus on one step at a time. If it's developing your meditation practice, then do that. But you're going to need to work with this whole Eightfold Path and just gradually bring it into your life more and more. And this is where you're going to see real significant improvements in your life. It definitely works. I can assure you of that. Okay, so next week, what I'm going to be teaching is chapter 6, which is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. This is a very simple teaching. It'll probably take me all of about 15 or 20 minutes to teach it, and then I'm going to open up to questions. So after this big, meaty chapter of chapter 5, we have kind of like a short, thinner chapter coming up in chapter 6. So if you guys would like to attend that, I'll be teaching it here in the morning, and then in the evening, I teach it from home, and I live stream it at 9 p.m. So no matter what time zone you're in, you should be able to have a live class for you. And if you miss the live class, then there's a recording that you can take as well. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing meditation with students and then opening up to any and all questions that you guys have. And then not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, which is January 1st, we're going to be having our grand opening celebration downstairs, that our new classroom is going to be completely refurbished and redone. We're going to have a ribbon cutting celebration, and we're going to have food and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys would like to come to that, it's not this Wednesday, which is Christmas. Even though I'm going to be teaching on Christmas, you guys are welcome to come on Wednesday. It's next Wednesday on the 1st of January at 9 a.m. that we're going to be having our grand reopening celebration. So you guys are welcome to come and enjoy that. So perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Have a lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.